Do not be afraid. I am the cure.
It started long ago, and has since happened once a year. This horrible night. It was the end of October. I was eager for a new month. Who really knows why? Anyway, I was walking home that night from a friend's house down the street. It was around 5 o'clock, so there was sufficient light to guide the way. Even though I lived 20 minutes away, the sky seemed to dim rapidly. I picked up the pace after noticing this. Cold wind blowing against my back, as if urging me along. After what seemed forever, I found myself in the safety of my home, unharmed, so it stayed that way. I jolted around my house for some reason, still a little paranoid from the walk home. Regardless, I had nothing to fear, so with a cup of coffee in my hand, I settled down in front of the television. My favorite show was on, a marathon, in fact, which raised my spirits dramatically. When the clock struck 6:30, it was beginning a new episode. What a joyous day I was having. Well, it was joyous, up until that point. The sky was consumed by a blanket of darkness. The trees soon became looming, shadowy figures in my yard. I tilted my head to the side so I could get a better view of the sky, perhaps to see some stars or the moon. However, there was none. It was as dark as an abyss. This did not worry me, at least not as much as what happened next. I looked out of the window and saw something move swiftly across my driveway. I jolted straight out of my chair and pulled the curtain farther away from the window. It was gone. My imagination? I told myself. That or a stick being blown by the vigorously blowing wind. Yes, that must have been it. I went to go sit back down, but the figure once more caught my eye. The next thing I knew, I'd gone into total shock. The door had been knocked on. I hobbled over to the door, fearing the outcome of opening. I hesitated. 1 minute had passed, and once more the sound of knocking filled my ears. Ever slowly, I reached for the doorknob, and when it had met my hand, I reluctantly turned it. The sight was horrifying. Pale, white, wrinkly skin dotted with eyes that appeared to be similar to black holes. A short yet ominous figure it was. The voice coming from it was high-pitched and nearly a screech. I was unable to hear the horrid figure, due to its screech also taking on characteristics of a mumble. For a short while I stood there in awe, fear, not knowing what to do. Once more the creature muttered something under its breath. Once more I stared at it, this time nearly falling backwards as I walked in reverse with choppy steps, mouth wide open. I awaited a response. Now the creature seemed fed up, shouting, "I demand that you hand it over." My eyes became as wide as dinner plates. With fumbling hands, I made a desperate attempt to slam the door shut, but the creature soon outspread its hands and prevented the door from any further motion. It screamed, "I demand you give me it right now." After another delay, a long hand emerged from the beast as it firmly grasped its head. I cringed in fear, for it was removing its skin. I could barely look. Beneath was a small, round-eyed, pale-looking person-like character. I passed out. The next morning, I woke up, and all of my candy, sweets, or any sort of treat had been removed from my possession. I called my friend who lived down the street and told him of these events. I told him how irregular and terrifying this first-hand account was. He seemed a little unsure of my story. He said something might be wrong with me. I told him I would call this day the Day of Demands, due to the demanding ghost. I decided to name it, for my friend told me this occurs every year. However, I think he was a little scared, for he changed the subject and started talking about this weird thing called Halloween.